A bored suburban housewife, looking for danger and excitement in her life, fell in love with a lawless man. As drugs and jealousy fueled his rage, terror and torment took over in a wave of murder. "40 miles outside Phoenix sits the small, dusty town of Whitman, Arizona. It's a desert pit stop, barren in parts, rapidly expanding in others. Back in 1994, it was good news for local contractor Mike Murdaugh. He built walk-in freezers, but was known as a man with a violent temper.
I would like this freezer to be much smaller.
Oh, we'll make it much smaller, but you're gonna have to pay for it.
No, that was not the agreement.
That's our agreement.
Mike Murdaugh seems to have cut a very long shadow in Whitman. People seem to want to do whatever it was that Mike Murdaugh wanted them to do.
All right? That's the agreement.
He always had a gun on his hip. They just didn't want to get on his bad side.
Mike's gun was not just for show. It came with the job for his other income generator, dealing drugs.
He was a great supplier of crystal meth. There's a lot of meth use around him in his circle.
Mike relished his tough guy persona. And so did his new girlfriend.
What's my name?
Becky.
Becky Rawes had been desperately searching for a little danger and excitement in her life. The 33-year-old couldn't resist Mike's wild side.
In Mike, she found somebody who's comfortable in taking risks, in living outside of the rules, in getting his own way, and she saw something attractive in that power. She knew from the outset that he was hell on wheels.
Months earlier, Becky was living with her husband and raising their 2 small children in a suburb of Phoenix. After 9 years of marriage, she was bored, unfulfilled, and desperate for an escape from her mundane life.
Becky had a secret. And this secret was that she was cheering herself up with crystal meth.
Becky had dabbled with drugs since her teens and was now a full-blown addict. She realized it was destroying her marriage.
Oh, what are you doing? Kids, go upstairs. Thought I told you about this before. No, go ahead and get out. We had enough. Let's go. Come on. Oh, no. Let's go.
Her husband had finally had enough and filed for divorce.
Her marriage was breaking up. She was losing her children. She had nowhere to go.
Becky finished up in dust-blown Whitman, looking for her next fix. She'd moved there to be with her new boyfriend, Mike Murdaugh, who was happy to supply her favorite poison. He was someone she saw as a kindred spirit. There was nothing they liked better than getting high on meth.
Meth gives this incredible rush. It just takes the top of your head off. It's the most ecstatic thing. Some people experience it as more powerful than orgasm.
Together, their lives quickly became consumed by their addictions.
You know, baby, anyone messes with you, they mess with me.
But along with the highs came increasing paranoia, jealousy, and violence.
In even a very good person, meth can create evil. But when you have evil as a pre-existing condition, it absolutely magnifies that evil.
A friend thought he was doing Mike a favor by mentioning he'd seen a guy flirting with Becky. Instead of thanks, he received a brutal beating.
Mike Murdaugh didn't believe him, and as revenge for having talked trash about his girlfriend, he beat this young man severely.
Get in the closet! Get in the closet!
I didn't mean it, man.
Get in the closet! Get in the closet!
Don't put me in here, man.
Mike wanted to impress his new girlfriend with a lesson in pure terror. And she was an eager student.
Becky was laughing and giggling and egging Mike on.
Shut up!
I never want to see you here again.
Okay. Yeah, okay. All right, I swear.
Get out.
All right. Okay.
Get out.
All right, all right.
The couple's violent antics were just getting started.
What the heck is that?
What do you mean, what the heck is that? You know what it is. You don't know?
You know?
Mike's drug use continued to escalate,
I'm out of here.
upsetting Becky, who realized things were spiraling out of control. But she just couldn't live without her bad boy.
I'm back.
I have something for you in the fridge.
Fridge.
I told you. Don't ever leave me.
He told her that he killed the cat with knives by throwing knives at it, and that the cat tried to escape and climbed up a curtain, and Mike took a blunt object and smashed its head.
Mike bumped into an acquaintance, Tim Johnson, who was down on his luck and in need of somewhere to live. In a rare moment of kindness, Mike invited him to move in if he agreed to help out with chores.
Halfway done with this? Yeah.
How much longer you got? A couple more hours or something?
A couple hours, be finished. Do whatever.
I gotta go into town to do some business. She got some questions for you.
All right.
All right?
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Later. All right.
Yeah.
So can you help me?
Yeah.
The friendship didn't last long.
Doesn't work. Goes off.
In Mike's increasingly drug-addled mind, Tim was a thief, stealing his tools and someone not to be trusted. Mike prepared his own specialty cocktail for his unsuspecting lodger, a beer laced with a sedative. Mike told Becky it was time to take Tim for a little ride. They drove 30 miles to an isolated canal. Mike Murdaugh had big plans and wanted Becky to savor every moment. Drug-crazed Mike Murdaugh and his lover, Becky Rawes, had abducted their friend and flatmate, Tim Johnson, and driven him to a lonely canal bank on the outskirts of town. In Mike's paranoid mind, Tim was a thief and needed to be taught a once-only lesson.
It's hard to fully imagine and appreciate the terror that he must have experienced, knowing that he was in his own rolling coffin.
Having already given him a spiked drink, Mike had another nasty surprise. A syringe full of a powerful horse tranquilizer.
Oh, that's a nice little cocktail. Let's make you feel good. Don't worry about it. This is how you pay me. Look, I let you stay at my house. I give you a job. And what do? You sell my tools. You steal them and you sell them.
I didn't take any of your tools.
Don't lie to me.
For Mike, it seems that the torture, the psychological terror, was like the foreplay.
Get on your knees.
Take any of the tools.
Get on your knees.
All right.
Mike wanted his girlfriend to take an active role in the brutal crime.
There's no question that Mike Murdoch enjoyed vicariously watching others carry out violence.
Do it. Come on.
When Becky refused, Mike took over.
Hey.
A violent murder by bludgeon. It's very up close and very, very personal.
He grabbed a meat tenderizer and delivered the final blows. As Tim Johnson's body drifted off into the night, Mike's message was crystal clear.
You'll always be my girl.
With Mike and Becky, it seems that they get into this cyclone of lust-driven energy, whether it's fueled by violence, fueled by meth, fueled by the chaos of their relationship, but they just seem to work themselves into a lather and literally come to a sexual peak experience right after these violent episodes. Becky probably elects to stay with Mike and not leave even after witnessing the murder because there was some strange, almost unimaginable attraction and affiliation, and she elected to align herself with Mike and not leave.
Becky was no stranger to violence. She'd been surrounded by trouble of one sort or another all her life.
Becky was the youngest of 3 sisters. But before Becky was born, her father and her mother split up. Everyone in her family tells really heart-wrenching stories of Becky being sexually abused from, as her mother put it, from day one.
Looking for a release from her unending torment, she'd turned to drugs. And then thought she'd found a permanent escape from the hellhole she called home, a man to love. She was young and beautiful and was soon married with 2 young children. All was well until her little secret was out. She was a junkie smoking meth to quell her inner demons. The perfect plaything for Mike Murdoch. "18 days after Tim Johnson's murder, Peoria police made a gruesome discovery. A body floating in a canal.
They called us out at about 10 in the morning, and we sent detectives out here to take a look at the body. There's a chain that goes across the canal to capture anything that's any foreign debris.
When the body was recovered, it was apparent the victim was male and had been in the water for some time.
The body didn't have any identification on it. His eyes and hair were missing. He was terribly bloated and discolored. He's wearing blue jeans, no shirt, and one black work boot. Again, no wallet or identification.
There were clear signs the man had suffered a vicious attack.
It appeared that his upper front teeth had all been knocked out.
The body was sent to the medical examiner.
Our detectives focused on trying to match this body up with other missing person cases from around the valley.
Meanwhile, Mike and Becky's relationship was getting crazier by the day as their increasing drug use spiraled further out of control.
Missing something? What's missing?
I don't know.
Salt and pepper. You know I like salt and pepper.
I forgot.
You're not eating tonight.
Neither one of them had a job. Mike had been doing contracting work, which had pretty much vanished, or he stopped pursuing after he met Becky.
Tomorrow, you need to get out and get a job.
Okay?
Okay.
He gives the orders, he tells people what they can and cannot do. And when something needs to be done, he's not the one who's going to go out and do these menial tasks. He dispatches his underlings, including Becky.
On her way home from job hunting, Becky stopped at a petrol station.
Hey, where you going with them boots?
Local plumber Robert Miller liked what he saw. And it wasn't her CV. Robert told Becky he might be able to sort her out with a job.
Okay, well, I gotta go, so...
Hey, give me a call. Call me, I'll get you a job.
Thank you. This guy just approached me, so, oh, nice boots, babe. And
Becky revealed to Mike and two fellow drug addicts, Susie and Jimmy, how Robert had flirted with her. She knew full well this would produce another violent display of affection from her sadistic lover.
He was disgusting.
Sit down. Sit down.
Call him. Call him right now.
Call him.
Tell me you got a girl for him.
Hello?
Hi, it's Becky. From the gas station?
Hey.
Yeah, you wanna come party?
All right.
Girlfriend.
I got a girlfriend here, you know.
Becky knew Mike well enough to know that he would do really outrageous and vicious things, not just to protect her, but to flaunt his power and control over others.
They made a plan with him to arrive later that night.
I'll see you then.
Great. We'll be ready for him. I'll teach him a nice lesson.
With the prospect of a night in with two girls, Robert Miller took the bait.
Hey, you made it.
Of course.
Come
I
on
love
in.
your red. I like that. Fran, all right.
Hey,
Hey,
my friend Susie.
ready for party?
I'm ready.
You got it. You.
So ready.
You know it.
He thought he was walking into one situation, an opportunity for lust and pleasure.
But before his night of passion-filled dreams were fulfilled,
Messing with my girl?
Mike Murdaugh stormed in, ending the party.
Huh?
And he
Man, she
found
came
out the absolute terror that awaited him.
I don't want any of this, man. You're gonna shut up and not move a muscle.
Plumber Robert Miller had dreamt of a fun night in with two girls, Becky Rawes and her friend Susie, but it quickly turned into a nightmare.
Fun,
You having a good time? Messing with my girl?
Instead of getting lucky, he'd been caught in a trap set by Becky's brutal boyfriend, Mike Murdaugh.
Look, man.
Putting your hands on her, kissing her, and
I
all
didn't
that.
do nothing, man.
It was time for Mike's lesson to begin.
Empty your pockets right now.
All right, man.
They start by taking his money, forcing him to sit there on the couch for apparently a couple of hours where they kind of mentally tortured him. He sat there, terrified with these weapons clearly threatening him.
Girls, go ransack the van. Go see what's in there. You can have it, everything, man. Don't look, man. I don't want any of this, man. You can take it. Shut up! You're gonna shut up and not move a muscle. Hey, girl, how's it looking?
We got lots of power tools out here. Look at this.
Did you touch anything? Were you wearing gloves?
No.
Man, you know what I have to do now?
So he has to be thinking in his mind, what's going to happen to me next? It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt.
Look, man, just let me go out the front. Get on your knees! Get on your knees! Look, hey, don't shoot, man. Look, let me walk out the door. You're the one that said he was touching you and everything.
Part of the dynamic behind Mike's seemingly generous offer to allow others to participate in the violence was that he got to be the gatekeeper. He was in control. He got to direct other people, and that's where he drew part of his power.
I didn't know she was your girlfriend, man. Come on. No, seriously, man. No, I was just talking to her, man. Get in! No, I cannot get in there. Get in there! Get in! You can stay in there until I figure out what I'm going to do.
Robert Miller realized he was in desperate trouble.
I'm claustrophobic!
He's a large man crammed into this space, knowing that very violent people are controlling his destiny.
Get me out!
Throughout the night, Mike, Becky and their guests returned to the garage to smoke and shoot meth.
Help me!
Robert Miller remained sweltering in the boot.
Here you have a collection of characters sitting around drinking, doing drugs, when a human being is being held captive in a very small space. It just reflects the complete lack of regard for human life.
Before the sun came up, Mike and Jimmy ditched Robert's van on a gravel road near Whitman Cemetery. On their way back, they picked up Chad Stevens, another friend and fellow meth user. "30 minutes later, the three men were shooting up in the garage, and Mike wanted to impress his new guest.
Hey, Chad. Want to see what's in the trunk? Got something really cool. Jimmy, pop it. Dude, you serious? Yeah. You gotta take a leak, man. Let me out. You thirsty? Oh, you thirsty. Let me out, man. You gotta take a leak, man.
Mike, being the great compassionate guy that he is, helped him out of the trunk, let him walk over to the corner of the garage, let him start relieving himself.
He was grasping at hope that things were going to turn out better. Little did he know that he was going to be not much more than batting practice. Mike Murdoch grabbed almost any weapon of opportunity, a meat tenderizer, a spike, whatever it might be, which really dehumanized and objectified his victim, and then the ultimate, putting the bag over the head just to cause more psychological terror. He really seemed to get off on that.
If you tell anyone, I could kill your children in front of you and skin them. And I'll kill you.
Got it? Hey, I need you to get some manure, cover the body, suck up the blood. All right?
And why don't you put them on that 60-inch for like something? All right.
Those unacquainted with Mike and with the long-term effects of meth might find it peculiar that he had Becky dress up in a bikini before using horse manure to sop up the blood of one of their victims. But it is this visual moment in which the sex and violence and drugs all come together under Mike as the director of this drama.
I think it's telling that the murders that Becky was involved with Mike Murdaugh, were murders of men. Here was a guy who was, by extension, making her powerful, and all the rage was going outward towards some other male figure. And she was associated with the power rather than being acted upon by the power.
Meanwhile, Robert Miller's live-in girlfriend was in a panic, wondering why he'd never returned home the previous evening. She contacted Robert's brother, who reported him missing to police.
He was a plumber by trade, and he failed to go to his first 2 service calls. So at that point, his brother called the sheriff's office and reported him missing.
What kind of vehicle is he?
He's got a big white work van, you know, kind of standard.
Any kind of identifying marks?
Police officers advised all neighboring law enforcement agencies to be on the lookout for the plumbing van, since that was all they had to go on. Meanwhile, Mike prepared to take a road trip.
Mike's plan to go camping has taken a little twist. He's now taking a corpse with him that he needs to hide.
I need you to go clean the garage. Clean the garage, okay? Be back.
Mike headed north for over an hour, to a peaceful place where he liked to relax and unwind. It was a campsite he called Heaven. But that night, he was recreating a scene from hell.
He spent the rest of the night in the forest, in the dark, cutting the head off the body, pulling the teeth out of the head, cutting the hands off the body, and cutting the fingertips, or the soft part of the fingertips, off the fingers.
Mike's cutting off the victim's head and finger pads is one of the few really well-calculated, methodical things that he undertook. And it wasn't a person anymore. It was just a corpse, and in Mike's mind, it was just evidence that he was getting rid of.
Investigators checked mobile phone records and discovered 5 calls had been made to the same number the day Robert Miller disappeared.
Tell me you got a girlfriend.
It's Becky. Yeah, you want to come party?
A detective dialed the number. Becky Rawls answered.
I don't even know why you're calling me.
Becky said she'd met Robert while looking for a job, but had no idea where the missing man was.
Why do I have to come to the police station?
We needed to do an in-depth interview with Becky to find out her involvement, if any.
Hello?
Mike, police is after us.
Did you tell him anything?
I told him I didn't know him, and
need to go there and...
Don't worry, just stay there. I'll be home soon. I love you.
We attempted to bring her in for an interview, but she basically no-showed us.
Robert Miller's employer hired a plane to conduct an aerial search of the expansive desert surrounding Whitman, hoping to spot his van. 2 days after the murder, police located the vehicle abandoned near the cemetery. His briefcase and work boots were inside, but there was no sign of Robert, his wallet, or his mobile phone. Investigators were alarmed to find out Becky Rawes was still actively receiving calls from that missing phone.
We needed to find that phone to see who was placing the phone calls.
Investigators then received an anonymous tip-off claiming Becky Rawes' boyfriend, Mick Murdaugh, killed Robert Miller.
At that point in the investigation, we were only armed with the information that Mike Murdaugh had beaten him and that he was dead, yet his phone is still being used.
Hello?
The obvious plan was to locate the phone, locate Mike Murdaugh, and attempt to locate the victim.
Witnesses told them that Mike had loaded up his horse trailer and left town.
We knew that he was camping in Yavapai County. We did an attempt to locate on him through Yavapai County Sheriff's Office.
Meanwhile, Becky panicked and decided to run away. She and her friend Susie looted Mike's house, pawned his belongings, and fled to a nearby hotel. Mike Murdaugh was in hiding, and in an ironic twist, while cleaning a horse's hoof, he badly injured himself. He'd accidentally severed a major artery and struggled to stem the blood flow.
He can't stop the blood. He sees that it's bleeding out fast, and he knows that he has to act fast or he's not going to make it out of the forest alive himself.
Time was running out for Mike Murdaugh. While hiding out with Becky, Susie told a relative about the bloody events of that fateful night. The horrified family member gave police the names of everyone involved. Chad Stevens was the first one detectives were able to track down. He told them he watched Mike Murdaugh beat Robert Miller to death. Investigators searched Mike and Becky's home. Inside the garage, they found evidence of the gruesome crime.
It was pretty much in the state that Mike Murdaugh left it. There was a pool of blood behind one of the vehicles that had been covered up with dirt or horse manure.
The garage turned torture chamber was still spattered with blood. An alert was issued for Mike Murdaugh and his pickup truck. A tip came in that Becky Rawes was at a Phoenix motel. Police wondered if the couple were together and whether Mike Murdaugh would try and kill again.
Sheriff's office!
Becky was taken to the sheriff's office and was soon talking.
I just want to tell you what happened.
Months of increasing drug abuse had taken its toll on the former suburban housewife. In a rambling, often incoherent interview, she told police about her boyfriend's murderous rampage.
I was really scared. I didn't know what was going to happen.
Becky knew Mike was a cold-blooded killer, but his bad boy lifestyle had proved irresistible.
I wanted to get away from him, and I couldn't. It's like one of those relationships that they were just unhealthy, you know.
And her boyfriend had made it clear she could be next.
If I ever told anyone, if I was to ever tell anybody anything about this, even you kill me.
Then investigators got the call they'd been waiting for. Blood-spattered Mike Murdaugh had arrived at a hospital's emergency unit, but could police catch him before he killed again? Police in Whitman, Arizona were hunting for murder suspect Mike Murdaugh, who'd been battling to save his own life after accidentally severing an artery while disposing of his latest victim. Then they received a hot tip.
Yavapai County Sheriff's Office located the vehicle registered to Mike Murdaugh at the medical center. We immediately had the vehicle secured and impounded.
Mike Murdaugh, Sheriff's Office, do you mind answering a few questions?
What about?
Took a look in your garage, searched it.
Was it cleaned up?
No, it wasn't. Not at all.
He knew at that point that he had some major problems in Maricopa County.
I guess you guys got enough on me, don't you?
He stated he'd be going away for life.
Things kind of got out of hand.
How out of hand?
Pretty out of hand. Oh, yeah.
And he just starts telling everything.
Well, this guy was bugging my girlfriend.
We knew what happened, and he started from the beginning and walked us through the entire situation.
I had my girlfriend call him to invite him over.
He's the gatekeeper of the information. He's going to decide what law enforcement learns about him.
Kind of party.
Trying to take a drug.
It is one of his last efforts to stake out a power claim by controlling the conversation.
We're just going to scare him.
Mike said that it was his idea to invite the victim to his house and ultimately rob him, take his money, and basically teach him a lesson.
We just put him in the trunk. We were going to scare him. Lost track of time.
Help me.
Before you know it, it was really late.
Then what happened?
He got out of the trunk.
It escalated to the point that he knew that he'd have to kill him.
He got out of the trunk, then I hit him.
What'd you hit him with?
A meat tenderizer.
Meat tenderizer?
I just kind of lose it sometimes. Before I knew it, he was dead.
You're just all of a sudden dead.
Yeah, he was dead. I didn't think I hit him that hard.
And?
I had to get rid of the body. So I took it over to the campground.
He described to me how he removed his hands,
Then I cut the head off.
his head. He described throwing the teeth out, throwing the fingerprint pads out. He described how he had the issue with his horse's shoe, and he had taken the knife out to clear the horse's shoe and ultimately stabbed himself in the leg. He said that's where he messed up.
Is there anything else you want to tell us?
There was a guy that came to stay with us.
He described in detail the drawn-out murder of Tim Johnson.
Mike said that he was an ex-con and that he had been on a work release program.
Put him in the canal.
Becky Rawls confirmed Mike's tale, claiming it was a terrible thing to watch.
I hear this whack. Like in his head 8 or 9 times really hard. And then he'd get into the teeth. Then this awful noise starts.
Police trackers located the campsite. They found a sign Mike had left for Becky, giving directions to his remote hideaway.
Camp was in a forest area. He had a tent set up, the horse trailer.
Mike Murdaugh wanted police to see his bloodthirsty work.
He actually drew us a map showing where he had buried portions of the body.
Various remains of Robert Miller were found scattered throughout the area.
Knowing how bodies are identified, he said that he actually pulled the teeth and cut the fingerprint pads off his hands. He said as he's driving down the road, he slowly just threw them out the truck window.
Police found the tools of Mike's butchery and remnants of Robert Miller's life littering the ground.
We found the cell phone, we found a pager. There were numerous items that were ultimately identified as belonging to the victim.
He had a good job, he had a brother who loved him, he had 2 kids, and he had a girlfriend. Unfortunately, he did choose to pursue some kind of adventure with Becky, and he paid for it with his life.
Mike Murdaugh pleaded guilty to the murders of Robert Miller and Tim Johnson. He was sentenced to die and remains on death row.
Murdaugh, you have a cataclysmic confluence of negative factors. You have his underlying personality structure, the meth, and then his overkill, his burnout from meth, and his paranoia that just led him down this path.
Becky Rawls pleaded guilty for her role in the murders and was sentenced to 22 years in prison. She continues to blame her boyfriend for the killings.
There's no question that she had a reason to fear him. Yet she continued to be with him, and she did have opportunities to leave one way or another over the course of months. Opportunities in both cases of these murders to save the men. She could have, if nothing more, gone running down the street trying to attract attention. She could have used her influence over Mike to calm him down and get him to release the man in the trunk. Becky has a history of being described as a meek and powerless person, but Mike could give power to her sort of in a voyeurist way, where he was actually raining the blows down, but she got to watch it happen, and that was her guy who was doing it. She was involved in enjoying those murders. She liked the power. She liked seeing that she had a big boyfriend that she could basically twist around her little finger, and he didn't even know it. He thought he was in control.
Jimmy Smith pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, kidnapping, and armed robbery, and was released from prison in 2011. Susie Stevens maintained she knew nothing about Robert Miller's murder till she saw him lying in a pool of blood in Mike Murdaugh's garage. She was charged with kidnapping and spent 3 years in prison.
This drug ate away their capacity for judgment or any kind of human connection, human compassion for someone who was suffering or endangered. It's really horrible what they were willing to do for their supply of meth. Becky had felt powerless most of her life, and here was a guy who was very powerful that she could control in her own way, and that's quite a wicked attraction.